Today is March 10th, 2026. Welcome back to Nulmico channel, and the AI world has had an absolutely wild day. We've got Nvidia going open source on AI agents, a major legal showdown between Anthropic and the US government, OpenAI and Google employees publicly taking sides, China pouring money into agentic AI, industrial robots getting a massive simulation upgrade, and new open source tools and models to power the next generation of AI agents. Let's dive into your AI news roundup. First up, Nvidia is making a big move into the AI agent space. This news comes from Wired Artificial Intelligence and was released on March 9th, 2026. Wired reports that ahead of its annual developer conference, Nvidia is planning to launch an open-source AI agent platform. The idea is to embrace AI agents similar to OpenClaw, that's the agentic system that's been exploding in popularity in China. Nvidia's platform is expected to make it easier for developers to build agents that can take actions, not just chat. Think agents that can operate computers, call tools, interact with robots, and plug into real-world workflows. The key point here is open source. Nvidia, which has been dominating AI hardware with its GPUs, now wants to be a core software platform for agents as well, and it's doing it in a way that lets the broader community build on top. This positions Nvidia right in the middle of the agent ecosystem, powering the chips, the simulation environments, and now the agent frameworks themselves. And that connects perfectly to our next story, which is all about physical AI and robots. This news comes from the Nvidia blog and was released on March 9th, 2026. Nvidia announced a partnership with ABB Robotics titled ABB Robotics taps Nvidia Omniverse to deliver industrial-grade physical AI at scale. ABB is one of the biggest names in industrial robotics, and they're integrating Nvidia Omniverse libraries directly into their Robot Studio programming and simulation suite. What that means in practice: engineers can simulate robots in a photorealistic, physically accurate virtual environment before anything ever touches a factory floor. According to Nvidia's blog, this can dramatically cut engineering time and reduce deployment costs by up to 40%. You can design, test, and optimize complex robotic workflows in a digital twin of your factory, and then push that configuration into the real world with much higher confidence. Tie this back to Nvidia's upcoming open-source AI agent platform, and you can see the bigger picture. Nvidia wants AI agents that don't just live in a browser, but actually operate robots in the real world, simulated first in Omniverse, then deployed in factories, with ABB hardware. Now, while Nvidia is leaning into agents and physical AI, China is going all in on agents on the software side and raising some serious security questions. This news comes from the South China Morning Post, Tech, and was released on March 9th, 2026. The article is about Chinese local governments offering OpenClaw project subsidies as security questions linger. OpenClaw is the AI agent platform that's been sweeping China. It lets users build agents that can operate devices, automate workflows, and tie into robotics and software systems. According to SCMP, local governments, especially in tech hubs like Shenzhen, are rushing to support OpenClaw adoption. In Shenzhen's Longgong district, the local AI and robotics agency published a draft on Saturday proposing sweeping incentives, including subsidies of up to 2 million yuan, about $290,000 for approved OpenClaw projects. Nearly 1,000 people reportedly attended a related event, showing just how intense the excitement is. But the South China Morning Post also notes that privacy and security concerns are growing in the background. When you have agentic systems that can access data, control devices, and potentially interact with critical infrastructure, questions around surveillance, misuse, and data protection become much more urgent. This is a theme you'll notice throughout today's news. As AI agents become more powerful and more embedded in real systems, the political, legal, and ethical stakes get much higher. Which brings us to the biggest political and legal story of the day: Anthropic versus the US government. We've got 3 separate pieces on this, and they all connect. First, this news comes from Engadget Tech News and was released on March 9th, 2026. Engadget reports that Anthropic has filed a lawsuit to prevent the Pentagon from adding the company to a national security blacklist as a supply chain risk. Engadget explains that the Department of Defense sent Anthropic a letter confirming this designation, which is usually reserved for foreign companies the government sees as potential threats. Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei, had previously said they would fight back, and now, they have. The lawsuit claims the designation is unlawful and violates Anthropic's free speech and due process rights, calling the government's actions an unprecedented and unlawful campaign of retaliation. According to Engadget, this all stems from weeks of back and forth where the Pentagon allegedly pressured Anthropic to remove certain safeguards from its AI systems, specifically around mass surveillance and autonomous weapons. On the February 27th deadline, Amodei refused to weaken those safeguards. In response, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth threatened the supply chain risk label, the cancellation of a $200 million contract, and President Trump ordered all federal agencies to stop using Anthropic's technology. Despite that, Engadget notes Anthropic had agreed to help transition the government to another provider that would meet its demands. Engadget also points out that OpenAI stepped into the gap and quickly made a deal with the Department of Defense. Sam Altman publicly said OpenAI still prohibits domestic mass surveillance and insists on human responsibility for the use of force. Their contract reportedly even states the AI system shall not be intentionally used for domestic surveillance of U.S. persons and nationals. Even so, not everyone at OpenAI was comfortable with this direction. Engadget reports that OpenAI's head of robotics hardware resigned over the DoD deal, saying on X that surveillance without judicial oversight and lethal autonomy without human authorization are red lines that didn't get enough deliberation. Now, let's add more context from Wired. This news comes from Wired Artificial Intelligence and was released on March 9th, 2026. The article is titled Anthropic Sues Department of Defense over Supply Chain Risk Designation. Wired frames this as the Trump administration escalating what started as a contract dispute into a federal ban on Anthropic's technology. Anthropic, the developer of the Claude chatbot, argues that the administration overstepped its legal authority by using national security tools to punish a company for refusing to change its AI safety stance. Wired also notes that the government's supply chain risk label could have massive commercial consequences because it signals to other companies and governments that Anthropic is dangerous to work with, even though the company is US-based and has heavily marketed itself as a safety-first AI lab. That leads directly into the third Anthropic story. This news also comes from Wired Artificial Intelligence and was released on March 9th, 2026. The article is titled Anthropic Claims Pentagon Feud Could Cost It Billions. According to Wired, Anthropic executives say that after the Trump administration labeled the company a supply chain risk, many companies paused or walked away from deal talks. The company is warning that the fallout could cause a significant revenue hit, possibly in the billions over time, because big customers don't want to risk being entangled in U.S. national security issues. So, you've got an AI lab that refused to relax its safeguards around surveillance and autonomous weapons, the U.S. government labeling it a security risk, pulling federal contracts, and potentially scaring away private sector partners. And now Anthropic is suing, saying this is retaliation for its stance on AI safety and free speech. And it doesn't stop there, because people at other AI giants are now stepping into the fight. This news comes from The Verge AI and was released on March 9th, 2026. The Verge reports that employees across OpenAI and Google have filed an amicus brief supporting Anthropic's lawsuit against the Pentagon. Nearly 40 employees from OpenAI and Google, including Jeff Dean, Google's chief scientist and Gemini lead, signed onto this brief. According to The Verge, they're essentially telling the court and the public that the government's actions are deeply concerning and could chill responsible AI development. The Verge notes that the supply chain risk label Anthropic received is typically used for foreign companies that might compromise U.S. infrastructure, not domestic AI labs debating safety policies. For influential people inside Google and OpenAI to publicly back a rival like Anthropic shows how worried they are about the precedent. If the government can punish one AI company for refusing to relax safeguards, it could pressure others in the future. So, zooming out, on one side, we have governments pushing for more powerful AI capabilities in defense and surveillance. On the other side, we have AI companies and even employees at rival labs trying to draw red lines around mass surveillance and lethal autonomy, and this conflict is now playing out in federal court. While all of that is happening, the tooling for AI agents is quietly getting better in the open source world. This news comes from MarkTech Post AI News and was released on March 9th, 2026. MarkTech Post reports that Andrew Ng's team at Deep Learning AI has released a new open-source tool called Context Hub. Context Hub is designed for coding agents, the kind of AI that writes or maintains software. The problem it tackles is that models are trained on static data, but APIs, libraries, and tools change constantly, so your coding agent might know how an API worked a year ago, but not how it works today. According to MarkTech Post, Context Hub gives agents up-to-date API documentation by connecting them to the latest reference material in a structured way. Instead of hallucinating how an API works, the agent can pull the current docs, understand them, and then generate code that matches reality. This fits neatly into the broader agent trend we've already seen today: Nvidia's agent platform, China's OpenClaw push, and now open source infrastructure from Andrew Ng's team to keep agents grounded in real, current information. The more reliable the tools behind agents become, the more they can be trusted in real workflows, and the more important the governance questions get. Speaking of infrastructure for AI, we've also got a new model that's designed specifically for speech at the edge. This news comes from the Hugging Face blog and was released on March 9th, 2026. The post is titled Granite 4.0.1b Speech, Compact, Multilingual, and Built for the Edge, and it comes from IBM's Granite team in collaboration with Hugging Face. Even though the summary we have is blank, the title tells us a lot. Granite 4.1b Speech is a 1 billion parameter speech model that's compact, multilingual, and optimized for edge deployment. In other words, It's designed to run on smaller devices, think embedded systems, on-prem hardware, or low-latency environments while handling speech in multiple languages. This kind of model is exactly what you'd want powering voice interfaces for agents running on devices, robots, or local appliances where you can't just stream everything to the cloud. It also fits with the trend we're seeing toward more local, privacy-conscious, and responsive AI, especially important in industrial and consumer settings where constant cloud connectivity isn't ideal. Now, before we wrap, there is one outlier story in today's list, and we'll keep it brief. This news comes from Mashable Tech News and was released on March 9, 2026. Mashable reports that the Beat Studio Pro headphones are on sale for half off, down to about $169.95 on Amazon, just $10 above their all-time low. Not strictly an AI story, but relevant if you want better audio gear for listening to AI podcasts, watching AI conference keynotes, or just zoning out after too much AI drama in your newsfeed. So, putting all of this together, from Nvidia's upcoming open-source AI agent platform and its partnership with ABB Robotics on industrial physical AI, to China's heavy subsidies for OpenClaw projects, to Andrew Ng's Context Hub and IBM's Granite 4.0.1b speech model, we're seeing a full-stack build-out of the AI agent ecosystem, from chips, to simulation, to software infrastructure, to on-device models. At the same time, the Anthropic versus Pentagon showdown, reported by Engadget, Wired, and The Verge, shows how quickly AI has become a frontline political and legal issue. It's not just about who has the best model anymore. It's about who sets the rules for how these models can be used, especially in surveillance and warfare. And it's striking that employees at OpenAI and Google are publicly supporting Anthropic in this fight, signaling a growing cross-company safety and ethics block inside the AI industry. If you want to go deeper on any of these stories, check out the original reporting from Wired Artificial Intelligence, Engadget Tech News, The Verge AI, the Nvidia blog, the South China Morning Post, Tech, Mark Tech Post AI News, the Hugging Face blog, and Mashable Tech News. They've got all the details, quotes, and technical breakdowns behind what we covered today. If you enjoyed this AI news roundup and want more daily coverage of how AI is reshaping technology, policy, and the real world, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for watching Null Mic Go channel, and I'll see you in the next one.